Ayo, back at it again with another video. Thank you all for watching. I greatly appreciate it. So, this video is about globalization, and I wrote an article about how globalization killed the Rust Belt. So, we'll get into the article that I wrote here in a second, but yeah, so I'm going to head over to Google Maps from Northwest Indiana. Rust Belt mostly consists of mostly the Great Lakes region. Looking from Buffalo over to New York, through Erie, Cleveland, Detroit, South Bend, Gary, Indiana, Chicago, probably even up into Wisconsin and Minnesota. So I wrote an article called "Globalization Killed the Rust Belt." If you want to follow me on Substack, it is at Matthew Vargo. No pressure, but this is a cool way of me allowing myself to put my thoughts into writing and talk about this kind of stuff in a different way. So, title: Globalization Killed the Rust Belt. I wrote this a while back, December 20th. So, I grew up in Northwest Indiana, so pretty close to Chicago. Gary's one of those cities that really hit the Rust Belt hard. I think other examples are South Bend and Detroit are another example. Cleveland, even Erie, Pennsylvania, and Buffalo. But I grew up in Northwest Indiana, 45 minutes to an hour away from Chicago, depending on traffic, and longer if it is rush hour, obviously. In Northwest Indiana, industry is a big part of the local economy. So we'll go back to Google Maps. So places like Gary, you had Steelworks, East Chicago, Hammond, Whiting. There's oil refineries up here. If you zoom in, you got BP, Whiting, Indiana Harbor, a lot of BP up here. The marina, whole bunch of stuff, but mostly along the lakeshore from Whiting through Chicago and up to Gary, and even all of this right here is like really big industry. Industry is a big part of the local economy, and the labor unions here are pretty strong because unions and union labor essentially built the area, or the region is what we call it here in Northwest Indiana. If you ask anyone in Indiana where the region is, they probably know what you're talking about. Whether they like it or not, it's up to them. But the region, aka the 219, is the area code part of the Rust Belt. And I don't like that term. I actually hate the term the Rust Belt because, I think it's derogatory, but most people understand that terminology, so I'll use it here begrudgingly. And the reason why I hate it is because it implies that our better days are behind us. The same people who bestowed that term and that phrase upon us are the people who sold and shipped our jobs away to China and other parts of Asia and all around the world. So if go back to Google Maps, a lot of industry up here, Northwest Indiana. You go over to South Bend, even Fort Wayne, Toledo, Detroit, huge automotive, and then that got shipped elsewhere. Cleveland also, Erie, steel in western Pennsylvania, even Youngstown and Warren over here in Ohio, Buffalo, New York, Rochester, New York. And if you go to the other side, even up to Milwaukee, Madison, Green Bay, and probably the Iron Range up here in up towards Duluth, in Minnesota. But that's pretty much what the Rust Belt is. And again, don't like that term because the people that owned the factories, are these multinational corporations, and then those same people own the newspapers and own the media and the press. And Yeah, they took our jobs away and shipped their jobs away, and then essentially laughed in our face from their ivory towers. Jobs went away and were shipped to Asia, Latin America, and elsewhere. So, mostly shipped off to places like China and Vietnam and Myanmar and Thailand and the Philippines and whatnot. Even Indonesia, maybe. But most of the jobs now are somewhat coming back, but they're coming back to like Mexico and maybe in the southwest of the country. But yeah, globalization just absolutely destroyed this area of the country. Decades of globalization has hollowed out American industry. You know, if you look back to World War II, we were the arsenal of democracy. And now we don't have that manufacturing capability anymore, because all the jobs that were in manufacturing up in this part of the country, Milwaukee and Chicago, Detroit and Cleveland and Buffalo, have been shipped elsewhere because American jobs meant nothing to these multinational corporations because they were too busy worrying about their bottom line. Corporations ship jobs away because they wanted to increase their profit margin, because if you can find cheaper labor elsewhere, meaning that means more and larger profit margins for these corporations. So corporations felt that their profit margin was more important than the people that they employed here in the United States, and the politicians went along with it because the corporations bankrolled their elections and re-election campaigns. And, I've seen a lot of people talking about, it's a Democrat thing, or it's just a Republican thing. This wasn't just one party or the other. This was a bipartisan affair. Both parties, both major parties, no matter if you're at the national level, at the state level, or even local level, both parties decided to sell out American jobs because the money kept flowing from these corporate interests into their pockets, either into their pockets themselves or into their election or re-election campaigns. These corporations took paychecks away from American workers. And these corporations that took paychecks away bankrolled the politicians to get their way. And globalization, in my view, is a failure. An absolute, complete failure. And I say here, don't get me wrong, cooperating with one another on a global level is important. It's critical. But, however, not at the expense of American workers and American industries. Over the past couple of years, the consensus in D.C. is to bring back jobs here to the states, which that's actually pretty good. However, corporations still bankroll politicians, and now all these big businesses want to bring back jobs because of supply chain issues. Whether that's geopolitical tensions or natural disasters can disrupt global trade and supply chains. So now the corporations and the big businesses who shipped our jobs off in the first place with the complicity of the politicians are now bringing back jobs to the states because supply chains are now hurting their bottom line. Karma is a very interesting thing. So let's look at a couple examples on the map. Two really crucial points over here in East Asia, the Taiwan Strait, the Malacca Strait. These are two really big bottlenecks and choke points. If you want to go from the Indian Ocean into the South China Sea, the Philippine Sea, and even into the Pacific Ocean, you have a handful of ways you can go. You can go through the Bay of Bengal, through the Malacca Strait, and into the South China Sea. And the South China Sea has a lot of tension right now at the moment. China, Vietnam, Philippines, disagree over maritime disputes. And that's not even to mention the fact that Taiwan and China don't particularly like each other. Obviously, Taiwan says they're independent. China is like, no, you're a renegade rogue province, and we're going to reintegrate by force if necessary. But that's just one example. Another examples are these three straits right here: the Strait of Hormuz, the Bab el-Mandab Strait, and the Suez Canal. So right now, the Strait of Hormuz, Iran, has, been causing havoc in the Strait of Hormuz for decades. The Houthis are now, with the conflict between Israel and Hamas and other actors, the Houthis are now in Yemen, now disrupting global trade through the Bab el-Mandab Strait, and that at its narrowest point is only about 25 miles long. That's pretty narrow. And then, so due to geopolitical tensions both in Asia and in the Middle East, and let's not forget the Suez Canal, there was that container ship that got stuck a while back, like a year or two ago. So the fact that these corporations now had, they shipped jobs away because they wanted to increase their profit margins, and then they're now having to bring jobs back because of different tensions geopolitically or natural disasters or what have you. So now they're bringing jobs back because now they're losing money because of supply chain issues. So I think karma is a very interesting thing indeed. But yeah, I hate globalization. I think it's incredibly stupid. Basically, politicians and these corporations who bankroll them basically sold American jobs off because they were, these big businesses and this big money was flowing to the politician. They're like, you know what? That's, that's what they were okay with. But no, I think globalization is a failure. I agree that we need to work together globally to cooperate on issues. But I think globalization over the past 4 decades has been a failure, complete failure. 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. It hollowed out American industry and shipped jobs away. And I hate that. I hate that a lot. So, yeah, globalization failed, and I think people are starting to wake up to that. Yeah, that is the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I like posting articles online, and then I'll be able to talk about it on my YouTube. So if you enjoyed, I hope you did, and I will see you all in the next video. Deuces.